am Marc Daniel Nelson here on behalf of Apogee and Produce Like a Pro. Today we have a cool little tour of Apogee Electronics here in Santa Monica with Bennett and Bob Clearmountain. Let's go take a studio tour and go see Bob's new studio. I'm gonna treat this as if this is my first visit, and let's go take a peek. Shall we? Let's go.
Hey Marc, how are you?
How are you?
Come on in.
Okay.
Welcome to Apogee.
When did you build the building? When did you guys move in?
Well, you know what, it's interesting because we did have to do a lot of work on this building. As you can see, we had to do all this earthquake work in 2004. So we've been here for quite a while. People think that we're a really large company, but we're not. You know, this is the sales and marketing department here.
Great.
So we got Lily and Greg and George, and I think George is gonna take you through for a little tour.
Great.
So
sounds good to me.
I think I'll pass you on.
Okay, we'll talk to you and Bob in a few.
Okay, good.
Hi, George.
Well, let's show you the lay of the land.
Great.
So right now you're in the bullpen, as we affectionately call it here. So you'll see all activities here happening between sales and marketing. And, you know, again, because we're a small company, a lot of times some of the people here, one of the cool things about this company is it's largely run by people that really understand production and engineering. There's very few people here that work that do not play instruments or have not produced records. So our team here works between support and QA and software development, and this is where a lot of that magic is actually happening. So one of the fun processes you see when you're actually at HQ here is what it means to make American-made products. That means putting things together, testing them, and making sure that when they get in the hands of users, they're rock solid and stable. So one of the things we do here is we burn in units. So it turns out that in audio components, things like op amps and all kinds of other things that happen on these circuits here have to have some current going through them before you know if things are going to live or die. And we'd rather not have that be in the customer's hands. So here we have our bake rack, which is usually full to the threshold, aside from the fact that we have a Symphony Mark II chassis shortage at the moment. But rest assured, usually these things are baked in and doing the whole process. And that way, when it gets into your hands, you know it's solid and reliable.
So after you do all the bake-in and test, quality control goes to the warehouse, which we'll go see shortly, and everything gets wrapped up and shipped out. Great.
Yeah.
Well, let's go take a look at that.
Sounds good.
Ding, 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 ding. Great. What's going on over here? Assembly?
I'm, yeah, from
Awesome.
some 16 by 16 models.
Awesome.
So they come from the CM or contract manufacturer, this particular, without the faceplate. So I'll be putting a faceplate on, sticker, serial number.
All right. So now on to the warehouse, Yo MTV crib style, where the magic happens. Again, one of the things about this company is, you know, there's so many folks that are in professional audio where they're largely corporately run. One of the beautiful things about Apogee, and although maybe more chaotic and more interesting than people expect, is simply that we get to do everything from start to finish. Right. And have that investment in the product and be able to do all this stuff. So in our warehouse right now, you'll see things palleted up, getting prepped out to ship all around the world and make sure that people have availability of products where they need to get to them. And you'll notice that turns out we're challenging the ceilings a little bit here, but you know, again, to make sure that we don't have any shortages of stuff when people need it. So one people that need to definitely be acknowledged in this space here, even though they're adjunct to the warehouse here, is our wonderful repair techs that have decades and decades of years knowing the ins and outs of all the circuits and op amps and modules and everything that makes your products work. So we've got Elvie and James over there working on repairs, making sure things are up to snuff and spec. They deal with things as we're developing products, and certainly they've now got years and years of making sure that for every power button, every switch, every potentiometer, every op amp, they know that thing inside and out and have soldered it together in a way that helps make sure that your stuff is stable if it ever has to come in for repair.
Very cool. Well, thank you again for the walkthrough. I think it's time now to go and sit with Bob and Betty and talk a little bit more about the history of the company. Let's go check it out. Okay, so we are back here in Betty's own private office here at Apogee, and I have Betty Bennett and Bob Clearmountain, and we're here to discuss the history of Apogee in general. 1985, that was the first year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, before we even incorporated on the filters, we made the 944 filter for the Sony 30-24 and the Mitsubishi 850, and the Sony 1610 mastering, which Bob felt really needed it. That was your comment.
Well, from trying to do the master of the Born in the USA album, which needed many, many parts, we wanted to do a digital running master because we didn't do any fades. Bob Ludwig had to do the fades. And it just didn't make it. It was before the filters. Didn't work.
Was Born in the USA mixed on a Sony?
No, it was mixed analog.
Okay. So and you printed an analog of that. But that was like the first era of you guys. So that was the era where you felt, you as the company and you as the maestro, that things are going to start changing for digital.
Yeah.
Was there an era where you're just like, we know this is coming? Because you guys are the pioneers of digital, clearly.
Well, it was DigiDesign, actually, when everybody was starting to move to a disk-based system. And what was it, Sound Tools was the first?
Sound Designer, it was called.
The first, before it became Pro Tools.
It was Sound Designer, yeah. And it was basically a playlist. And so to do an edit, you had to define not what you were going to take out, but what you were leaving in. So you have to define from the beginning to the edit, and then from the end of the edit to the next edit. It was really complicated. It's hard to do.
You built the filters, which was a huge step up. Because I remember when I started at Chicago Recording Company in 2000, they had a couple Dash machines and they did not have the filters. And that was like a talk around the building because they were still kind of using those machines at that era in 2000. And they were just all kind of be like, and they don't have the filter. So there was a huge step up in quality.
It really was. And there was artists that would go into studios or rental companies, and if they didn't have an Apogee Enhanced sticker on the machines, they wouldn't use them. So they'd have to rent in one. So yeah, it became a real needed item, that people just wouldn't record without the machines being enhanced, because there was such a big difference. There really was.
Right. And then finally, when Pro Tools caught up, where they were able to make I believe it was the 888, so that was Mix Plus systems. You guys came out with the AD8000?
That's
right.
Yeah, that's
And you
correct.
partnered with DigiDesign at that time?
Yeah, they had come to us and asked us to make the interface for their new disk-based system. And they wanted us to make something similar to the 888. And for that price point, because they knew they needed something and we just said we couldn't because, we had established our brand at something that was the highest quality, and we knew we couldn't do it for that price point. So we said, look, we will do the professional version of that. So we did the 88,000, and that's where we worked with them on the Digi interface. So that was a combined effort between Apogee and Digi.
I mean, I think a lot of people don't really understand this, and a lot of the viewers probably don't realize how bad digital audio sounded in the 90s and progressing, because now, converters are easier to obtain and stuff. Like Apogee products at that era were such a huge step up. And to be honest, the A88s were the worst sounding converters I've ever heard, other than the blackface ADATs.
Yeah.
So that was a huge jump. And then I'm trying to remember, my first impression using Apogee was the Rosetta. So that was the Rosetta 2 and then the 8. And I had 16 channels of that before we got the AD system. To me, that was a huge change because all the studios had their CD and DAT players with the Rosetta as their A to D converter. And it was such a huge jump up.
Well, this is the thing that so many people don't understand, that Apogee is the reason digital finally became an accepted recording medium.
Yeah.
Because people weren't accepting it.
No, there was a lot of complaints about CD sounding so digital and harsh, and they just wanted to go back to their cassettes. But the format was so great. I mean, a CD format was really great. And then after that, we did the UV22 algorithm, which allowed engineers to capture things at 20-bit, but yet still
20-bit, still under.
Yeah, still under 24. It was only 20-bit, and capture it at that higher bit rate, but yet go ahead and produce a 16-bit CD.
When was the era that you guys implemented the soft clip feature on the
Soft
converter?
limit.
Yeah, soft limit was that was on the 8500 and the 81000. So that was early 90s.
Again, this is during a time where digital was so sterile and it didn't have a lot of character, and most people wanted that extra character. You guys implemented that soft limit feature that kind of rounded off the peaks to get a little more headroom, because at that era of 16-bit or 20-bit, you try to get as much numbers
Headroom
as you could.
Yeah. Right.
And people were just pegging through it.
Yeah.
That was before I was involved, and that's what sold me was the soft limit, and it just sounded so much better than just plugging into a DAT machine or like the 888s.
The 888s and the ADATs. Oof.
Yeah, and that's kind of when we met.
I was gonna say, let's go back and hear, how did you guys end up meeting way back in the day?
Well, he was unhappy with digital, and I came by with what was it, the 81000?
Early boxes.
So actually, he was a customer.
Yeah.
And he was in a studio like all the time. So it was lucky that I met him, because I would have never met him anywhere else.
Right. And when I met her, she knew more about digital than I did, and so, well, this is an interesting person.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, he has this funny story about his rack. He was putting together a rack.
I had my first Pro Tools rack. I had what they call a Quadra computer. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
And
with all those giant SCSI boxes that had to sit next to it. Yeah.
So I had this rack I was designing it, and then I had a clock?
Mm-hmm.
Was it?
But Big Ben, but it was the
kind of a
clock
box. Yeah, and Betty goes, well, you don't really have to do that if you have an Apogee converter, because the clock's built into the.
Right, so you have the Big Ben as a separate item, but he was looking to save as much rack space as he could. Every single U meant a lot, because obviously you want to get it all into one. I don't know how big that rack was, but you traveled around with it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think honestly, there's no question that your team partnership has been such a strength praise to the company, because you're getting both sides of the technical aspect of like knowing that you're the pioneers of getting into this, but you're also coming from a guy that grew up in analog and knew analog and was pushing to hear that pleasing sound. I mean, you don't want analog and digital, but there's this pleasingness aspect. Is that the right word? Pleasingness? There's an aspect to analog that's just more organic and humanizing that digital was not doing in the beginning.
The original digital, yeah. The thing was, for me, I wasn't actually happy with analog, because I would do a session with somebody like Chic or whoever, and I'd be the only one in the control room, and the band would be out there playing because the producers are in the band. And I'm thinking, man, this is just, we've nailed it. This sounds so good. And not only that, but it sounds like a hit record, and it's just a track. It was like sort of once removed, it wasn't as immediate and it wasn't as present as it was when I was just sitting there with a band, when it was just, I was listening off the desk, and I just thought, man, there's got to be something better. It's got to, is there somebody who improved this? And then digital came along and it just didn't sound right. Then Apogee came along and I went, nah, there we go. That's what I'm looking for.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then obviously through the years, you guys have grew with the culture and the technology, and you came out with the Duet. When did the Duet come out? Because that was
This was a big one. The Duet went in 2006. And I'll tell you, it was a difficult transition for us, because we were so much at the high end with the 88,000. And, our stuff was always, there's no way that we were in that prosumer land. But I could tell that things were changing, mostly because of Bob, because the labels would be at our house at night. And then I'd hear that the labels were starting to give artists like a $40,000 budget, and they would go out and get an 8-app machine and, whatever gear they, packaged together for like 40 grand. And so the whole thing was recording at home. Right. It was becoming more and more. And I just put the dots together, and I thought, this is where the industry is going. We need to, jump on this. And then Apple called us and said that, because they had bought Logic recently, and said, would I be interested in coming up and having a conversation with them? And, they had a price point that was really crazy that they wanted us to meet. And I said I couldn't do it. But we ended up doing it for $495, and they accepted that. And so then we were in all the Apple stores, and they promoted it. So that was a big blessing for us.
That was
really.
A huge transition.
That was a huge transition that took us from a little mom and pop shop to that's why probably everyone thinks we're so large, is because
right.
we had that Apple.
That app. I remember in every magazine, it was always paired.
Yeah.
The Garage Band or whatever. And the Duet was a big thing. And I remember having a Duet as our computer playback converter. And then one day we did a shootout, and I won't say the other computer or the converter's brand, but it was about 3 times as expensive, and the Duet sounded better.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I tried to find a way to go, can we get 16 channels? How do we get 16 channels? Because it still sounded different. That's the thing about Apogee. There's a cohesive sound between everything. You guys always have the kind of brand signature character of things, but they did sound different with their own personality. And during an era of like 2006, when you're coming in where everyone's recording on vacation or in their house and stuff, being able to have something like this, which is the prototype. This was the first one?
That's one of the first ones off the line. So we made it purple so I could have one in our company color.
Purple is your specialty.
Yeah, we sent one up to Apple. So they have one and I have one. Those are the only two.
And some of these other guys are just the filters.
Well, that's the DC to DC power supply. Because once we got into it in the very beginning, in the late 80s, there was more than just the filters that were an issue with digital. There was also jitter. And that was a big thing. So that's why we did this is a low jitter clock.
I hate jitter.
Yeah, I hate jitter. And this is a DC power supply. So every element of the design mattered. So we went and redesigned those particular components to the spec of an audio person. Now, if you're an aerospace engineer, it could be a different spec, but we were looking at everything from the audio perspective. So we actually OEM'd so many of these to other, like Onkyo and Mitsubishi and Yamaha, so we did, I don't know, there must be like 20 companies that we OEM'd.
It's just crazy how fast it's only been, I guess now it's been 30 years, but it does feel like that development went very quickly from like 1995 to 2005. That's 10 years.
Yeah.
That the difference between digital versus an analog and how many, just really interesting to know that between 95 and 2010 or 2005, let's say 10 years, how much digital became a big apparatus and how many little hands you had in different companies.
People started working on laptops as well. There was home computers, and then, nothing like taking a tiny little device like that along with you in your backpack.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And then you graduating right into the symphony era.
Right.
Which is now still growing.
It is. So we're coming out with an anniversary edition, actually, next month.
It's purple.
It's purple, and it has Thunderbolt 3. So we'll be moving from, to a C connector on that. So there's a lot of things that people had wanted, and it's enhanced. But we're really excited about that because it's celebrating 40 years. We've been in business 40 years. It's hard to imagine, but it's 40 years.
You don't even look 40.
Yeah, thank you.
Outside of the converters, Apogee as a brand and a family, this building has so much going on other than just building converters. Obviously, when was the era where you started annoying Betty to say, I want a studio, I want a studio?
Oh yeah, I never wanted a studio. He was at home mixing. That's where we had his studio. And he had his mix room. And every once in a while, he'd have a day off because he's always so busy. So he would come and sit on this couch and watch me work. And it was so unnerving for having him sit here. And I would go, well, what are you doing? He goes, well, I never get to see you. I'd like to sit here. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get him out of my office. And at about that time, he had asked about, we had some extra space over there. And he wanted to know, well, I've always wanted a garage studio, you know, like $5,000. We'll just build up, it'll be a garage.
You know, we had to do demos of young bands, and, you know, I was sort of a dreamer there back then.
Yeah, and I just thought, while he's watching me work, I go, oh my God, anything to get him out of my office. So I said, please go and build your garage studio, $5,000, right? Yep, basic, very basic.
That graduated into a venue that has hosted the best of the best names over the last, how long has it been now? When did you start?
Well,
2007?
It was 2006 when we opened it, I think.
Yeah.
So what's that? It's almost 19 years. Yeah.
But we started hosting the KCRW shows.
That's a
not
great
long
partnership.
After that, right?
No. Well, the thing was that, you know, I decided to put a stage in there. That was like one of the first things they built because it was so easy just to put in a stage rather than putting up walls and stuff. And, oh, look, we got a stage. And I always thought it would be a cool thing to have a recording studio where you could do live shows and make a live album with an audience, but then actually turn it into a studio record. Because I worked on a record when I first started in the 70s with a band called Kool and the Gang, and they did that. They recorded a live album, and then they brought it in the studio, and they said, okay, this is going to be a hybrid. We're not going to pretend that we played all this live. And Ron Bell did all these elaborate horn arrangements, and they really turned it into a studio album with a live audience.
I mean, my opinion, that is always, I will never have any interest doing live sound, but capturing live in a studio sense has always been my most favorite. And that is like, basically you get the best of both worlds. You get the Neve console, the super microphones, but then you get the performance, which, as you know, is so different.
Yeah.
Playing live, the energy playing live in a studio or live versus the overdubbing and tracking.
And the whole band playing together
around
as
other
well,
players
and
too.
And of course, I still haven't done it. Someday, hopefully somebody will let me
Got to
do
find the right artist.
But anyway, we've done so many radio shows, which have been fantastic. And, you know, Alabama Shakes and Tom Jones and
Billie Eilish, Lady Gaga was just in.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. And it's just so much fun besides. You know, I used to call it, it's my excuse to get out of the basement, because I mean, my studio was in the basement at Rivas, sort of. And
it wasn't a basement.
It wasn't really a basement. But just to be able to get out and see live music. And
well, since I started getting calls to come to the shows and just sitting, because that's, for me, my funnest thing is if Marlene says, there's this person coming, you want to come? And I knew instantly it's going to be like 8 of us in the control room, sitting in the control room, and Bob's going to be mixing, the volume's going to be perfect, the balance is going to be great. And for me, it's the best because I don't love being in a super loud environment, a live performance, but it's controlled and it sounds great, which we will go see in a few minutes. But I think in general, it's like, that is such a creative, cool thing to have. There's nowhere else that I know that does this.
And for me personally, it's just so much fun because
it keeps you out of the office.
It's basically like a party.
And out of mind.
It's like a party every time we do one of these shows.
Yeah.
And everybody's there, and people say, well, doesn't that bother you that there's people behind you? And I go, no, it bothers me if there's nobody there. You know, because I feel like I'm almost part of the show in a way.
That's the craziest thing.
I'm sitting there mixing away, which is what I love to do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's live music, and it's usually somebody really good. And then everybody's enjoying it with me. You know, it's just fantastic.
It's part of my favorite thing about living in Los Angeles is being able to come out and just enjoy that evening. And
we have a bunch of different immersive areas. We have the control room, the studio.
The green room.
The green room, which at the moment we'd have to kind of gather the speakers back together.
Right.
They sort of dispersed at the moment. But then we have my new mix room.
Let us go. Bob and I are going to go take a walk through the live event space, and then we're going to go over and check out his new mixing room. Stay tuned. So this is the $5,000 garage studio.
Yeah, we might have gone a little bit overboard, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it's basically, this was a sort of an office thing, and that was a loading bay over there. And this was nothing. It was just a storage space for us. Originally, it was a print shop, this side. And I thought, well, geez, you know, we could put a stage here, and we could make the control room sort of diagonal. And you know, we have a little venue. I just thought it'd be such a cool thing to be able to have a recording studio that's also like a venue where people can perform. You know,
and you guys partners with a great radio station and do a great broadcasting system.
Well, that was the thing. Our friend Tony Berg is a really close friend of mine, and we co-produce things. And he was on the board of KCRW. I believe he still is. And I said to him, I said, what do you think? Would this make a good place for radio shows? And he said, I think so. And so he brought the folks over from there, and they just flipped. They just went, oh yeah, this would be great.
How many players have you gotten on the stage?
Oh, we've gotten like 16, I think, at one point.
Crazy.
You know, sometimes we'll set up a riser over here, and we'll have string players, we'll have horns, and you know, it gets pretty elaborate. Ozone Motley played here one time, and it's just fun, man. It's just so much fun. We have a VIP section up there where so they always have VIPs for KCRW, the really big donors.
You can still look down and be away from the peasants.
Yeah, and there's separate speakers up there, so it sounds good.
That's great.
And you know, but as a recording studio, there's a little ISO booth for a vocalist or acoustic guitar or something over there, and then right behind you, just about to trip on the
this folded ISO room.
Yeah, then this is these doors come out. This is a trick I got from Tony Bon Jovi at Power Station. You just, although these are different type of doors, but this closes off completely. So we might put I put a drum kit in here and had other instruments out here. Sometimes you'll have a rhythm section out here and acoustic guitars or strings or something like that. You know,
Great.
It's pretty versatile. Not only that, but we've wired up one of the bathrooms where we won't actually mic somebody in there.
A chamber?
But no, we use it we'll put a guitar amp in there or something, because there isn't a lot of, you know, ISO areas for things like that. Right. But this is the front of house desk that Brandon usually deals with. And so he's out here mixing, and then I'll be in here for recording and doing the radio show.
On the 2-inch?
Yeah, well, not so much. Yeah, I mean, that was great. And it's more of a museum piece now and doesn't really work very well.
It's a great sounding studio.
But once in a while we try to get it going again, but nobody ever asked for it, so.
I know, isn't that sad?
But anyway, this console, I wanted one like it, an 8068. This is what we had at Media Sound where I started
right.
For the last couple of years there. And then Power Station had 2 of these in Studio A and Studio B. And I always liked them because it's really easy to console to operate, and it's just, they sound great. I mean, some of the best mic preamps on the market, and a lot of people attest to that.
It's my #1 favorite mixing console for sure.
Yeah, and so I wanted one like it, so I went on the internet and I typed in Google Neve 8068, and this thing came up, and it's actually the console that we had at Power Station, the very console that was in Studio A. So then...
the very one.
Yeah. And so I was excited about it. And I came home and I said to Betty, I said, look, I'm thinking about getting this Neve 8068. She goes like, you're fucking kidding me. Because I had one of my guys looking for the same console. And he found, was it the one from Power Station? I said, yeah. Yeah, well, he found the same one. And so we were kind of bidding against, for a couple of days, we were bidding against each other without knowing it.
Double bidding.
Yeah.
And the plugin, which just came out, sounds absolutely terrific.
It's modeled on this.
Same EQ section and everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that love to know about outboard gear. So anytime there's a studio tour on PLAP, we kind of go through all the cool outboard gear just to show. You always have 78s in your rack.
Yeah, how about that?
LA3s and 1178s. Those
Yeah.
are your
Those are
those are
my
your
sort of
jams.
favorites. But this is, I mean, some of this is leftover. I mean, the 480 is leftover. I had that at Mix This originally. And then when we opened this, I needed reverb, so I just brought that over here. And yeah, so there's 1178. The 1176 is Brandon's, who is the guy that takes care of all this.
It's great.
And he kind of runs the studio.
You got some de-essers,
Got some, says the old DBX 902s.
little Pultecs up there.
Yeah, well, those are from Steve Jackson. I think he kind of either gave them to me or charged me a cost for them, I think.
$8 a piece.
Yeah. And some Apogee stuff, the Element, 2 Element series that we use for effects, because we'll set up a Mac with a either Pro Tools or Logic rig that has effects.
So you're using reverbs and delay like the Domain and Spaces live.
Right, exactly.
Okay, that's great. That's cool.
But I'll use it they'll be on a different rig.
Totally different rig.
Kind of separate. There's Distressor. I love the Distressors. And then this is new. This is the bus, the SSL bus, which they brought here for me to try out, and then I wouldn't give it back.
Yeah.
And so I had to send them a check.
That's a great box. And the coolest thing about it, so when you toggle through this setting, it can revert back to how much distortion from the first quad compressor to the modern.
Is that true?
Yeah, the cool features.
Yeah,
of
I
it.
haven't used it that much.
Some of the expander things with these EQ, dynamic EQs are very, very cool too.
But it's great for the radio shows to have, because I had another SSL compressor, but this has the high pass side chain in it, so you can hit it real hard with a bass drum and it doesn't fold up.
So do you like to do that little trick question on your stereo bus? Do you like to use a little side chain so you can make sure the bass doesn't get tacked
so
down?
the bass doesn't hit it, doesn't.
What's your
so you can
preferred
hit the
set?
bottom end. The what?
What's your preferred frequency?
Oh, I don't know. It's like 80, 90, somewhere around there.
People love to know this.
I don't even know. I let the assistants. I said, you said it.
Good old Ira. Do you still use any of these compressors?
Yeah, sure.
Those are amazing.
I use it for bass and guitar sometimes. They're great.
They're awesome.
I mean, the old chic Nile Rodgers guitar sound, I don't know if I should give away this secret, but it was a Fender amp with some kind of, it was either deluxe or a Vibralex or something we had at Power Station. And it was mixed with the DI and the mic mixed together. And then through one of these compressors, probably this very one actually, because those records were recorded on this desk. And then a Pultec, an EQP.
And that's the sound.
Yeah, and that's that sound.
I mean, that's the thing. All the records that we all love, it's always very simple. It's never like 15 mics going in and trying to make it complicated. And that's the thing I've always seen visiting you at the studio and stuff like that. Everything is just very relaxed in the sense that it's not overly complicated. And I think people have taken the art form to an extreme because they can.
Yeah.
And it's just not, it doesn't need to go there.
You see these sessions that'll have like 6 compressors on each channel. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Every bank of plugins is locked in.
Let's take all that off. Okay, now what does it sound like without any of it first? And then maybe add something. Okay, well, that's nice. But, don't go crazy. It's funny because I did a session once in New York for the Stones. And I came in and Mick Jagger was singing, doing the vocal, or supposed to be. And then I was going to mix it right after. And so I'm watching this engineer, and the vocal sound, it's all distorted and it's not working and it's noisy and all kinds of, and Mick's out there, he's a very patient guy actually. He was incredible, but if I was him, I'd be, what the fuck's going on, man? Can we just record this thing? And, he had it going through every box in the room. He had it going all these different compressors and outboard equalizers. And I said, okay, let's calm down here. Plug the mic into the console, into the SSL, and stick an LA2 on it. There, perfect. What's the problem?
I think it's just because people don't trust themselves enough. And you know this, when you start taking those plugins off, a session you got, and there's like 8 layers, by the time you get it all off, you're like, that sounds incredible. Why? Because people have so little confidence in themselves. They start thinking, well, if I see all this stuff in rack gears of other studios or whatever, they think that they have to use it. Or I remember when my first mastering session, this is 23, 24 years ago, like real mastering day, and I'm looking at the compressor and it's not even moving a half dB. And I literally in my head go, do I get a discount if he's not using the amount of compression? Because I didn't understand that at that time that the less is probably going to be bigger always. But this is great. This is such a beautiful studio. I think now we should absolutely go and see your new space.
Yeah.
You ready? Okay, now we are in Bob's new room called Mix This from the Ashes. Obviously, if you hadn't known, Bob and Betty lost their house in January to the big Palisade fires, and that also included his main mixing room of 30 years. Was it 92?
Yeah, 32 years, no, 93. Yeah, we built it.
All the gear gone. So the first thing that happened after the fire was, and one of the best things about the LA community during the fires on both the film side and the audio music side, was everyone just chipped in. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about that process of what happened to get us to where we're at today.
What happened, it's a couple of days after the fire, my good friend Chris Apogee called me up and said, listen, we got to get you up and running again. We all know what you've been through when you lost your room, which is just a horrible thing, but he says to me, okay, I have a spare 72 input SSL that I guess he bought for parts or something. And his brother also has a 72 input SSL, his brother Tom. I mean, as I guess most people have spare SSLs, I don't know. But anyway, they did, it's an interesting thing. And so what they did is they got together, they combined them because Tom's was more like what I had, because it had some factory mods that I really depended on. And Chris had the better equalizers. And so they sort of combined them and came up with a guy named John Ellis, who was a technician, brilliant SSL technician, and he kind of put it all together. And here it is. This is very similar. This is a 4000 Jeep series. This is very similar to the one that I had, with some of the mods. There's one thing called a Bluestone mod, which gives me 8 extra aux sends. And but then we had to upgrade it some more because mine had a 16-channel bus compressor. It's actually a variation or an expansion of the inboard stereo compressor that we did for the other console, and now we've done it again for this with the help of Lucas Vandermee, who used to be an employee of Apogee's, and Brandon Duncan, who helped put this. Brandon is the guy that mainly the reason this room came out so great.
Brandon was your old assistant, but also does all the live sound stuff with you.
That's right, and the Apogee Studio. He takes care of the Apogee Studio.
The coolest thing about watching the progression of this room was, I don't remember when that picnic was, but maybe it was like 4 or 5 months ago. We had the picnic down the street, and we walked in, and it was just painted. And I seen photos because Jonathan Morrison used to do stuff in here before that was just to look like a garage. But even then, you're like, come, we'll show you what it looks like. And it was just like, I'm like, what is it? And this was up like 5 feet.
It was still on dollies, yeah.
And then the next time you came in, all the wood was stained and the floor was in. And then, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, you had your little sneak peek party of people. That was really cool because it was finally like the whole unveiling. And it just reminds me of like an old British pub. And similar, behind the screen, there's a little beautiful little garden, kind of like similar before, where you could see at least natural light, which is so important.
There's a sliding glass door, and then there's a little house back there that we also own for guests, and sometimes my daughter and her husband stay in there. And but yeah, it's a little courtyard where we eat lunch out there. But now it's been expanded to, we happen to own the lot next door, and we had torn the house down that was there, and we were going to build a house there at one point to replace the house that we lost, but we realized it was going to be too expensive and it wasn't going to be all that great. And so now my daughter has built a ridiculous garden back there, which I call Alex's Magic Garden.
Spectacular.
It's really spectacular.
So there's going to be a big Apogee shindig in September in a couple weeks. And that's like the unveiling of the new room and the space and letting everyone know that everything's back open. And this new garden is the big unveiling of that.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And the rooms are all tied together with Dante so that we're going to have a band playing over in the studio in Apogee, and I'm going to be doing an Atmos mix of it in here live.
And you were just finishing up a Squeeze live for Blu-ray or live for streaming of some sort, which again, I was saying earlier, you're one of the few people that still does full analog Atmos.
Right.
Obviously stereo is one, and I know I've said this too, where I think most engineers would prefer to do mixing the way you do, which is hands-on gear, and going through all the gear behind me and around us. Essentially, you had most of this or variations of these brands in your room before.
Yeah, most of it.
1178s, LA3As seem to always be your favorites. A lot of distressors.
Yeah.
The Pultex, the Pulse Techniques,
Pultex. Yeah.
And the infamous Palindrometer 303, which no one can get their hands on. It's
No, this is special. Oh, it's very custom.
probably more than a Fairchild.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
But the reverbs, you have pretty much 2 analog reverbs. Most of the stuff is still plug-in. You like to use your domain and spaces.
Yeah, and Altiverb in the box.
Something about the 70s though.
Well, the 70s does something that I haven't found. I mean, if anybody out there knows of a plugin that will do the concert hall with a little bit of chorusing on it that just makes it so rich sounding. It was turned on to me by a guitar player in a band called originally called the Acid Test. And then they had to change their name to Altered State because somebody had the name of Acid Test. So I call it the Acid Hall. And, but so, yeah, it was recorded on a piano. He had recorded it with this reverb, and I went, wow, what's that? I thought, is this like it must be MIDI'd with some synthesizers or something. Oh, no, it's just the PCM70. And I go, well, just here, dial it into mine. Okay, I've been using it ever since.
There must be some sort of synthesis that happens in the algorithm that makes it, which is weird because it's not really known as a multi-effects box.
No, but it's like a chorusing, really.
Yeah.
It's just a really gentle kind of a chorusing, which you can adjust easily.
What other gear? Okay, so you have some Gain Lab stuff. They were really great at.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They just gave it to me.
Audioscape.
It's like an LE3A kind of thing, and then a 1178.
Audioscape, and then they just sent you a T4.
T4B for my my LA3A, which is the T4B is the opto isolator thing that makes actually the heart of it. And Dave Way gave me those because he wasn't using them, which is great.
And that's the thing. They're all stacked around from virtually the same setup you had. Again, your DBX de-essers.
Yeah.
Have you found a de-esser in the box that does as good as those hardware?
There's a few. There's some pretty good ones. Yeah. I don't remember, but my favorite de-esser is just a patch that I do on the SSL, which is, you can look it up. It's a little bit arcane.
It's just a little side chain.
Yeah, it's like a side chain thing that you use because the very fast limiter that's in the dynamics there. If you pull up the little release button and put it fast release and fast attack, and so with that combined with the equalizer works really well.
You can pin it exactly how you want. Yeah. Right.
And not only that, but it's after the fader, so I can automate the threshold.
Yeah.
You know.
So Ira Becker, who's been with Bob for a while, tell me about the 4 symphonies in this room. Most studios will have one converter.
Right.
Why is there 4 separate rigs in here?
Well, we have 2 systems, or 2 rigs. We have a multi-track rig, which consists of 3 symphonies, which are over there. And that was like 92 or 96?
I think 96 channels.
96 outputs, and 24 inputs that we're using.
It's got 96 inputs as well, but we've only got 24 of them wired.
Right. And that basically feeds the console. And then the output of the console, which is stereo and Atmos at the same time, goes to this print rig, which is in this symphony. And that's where we record everything. And that stays at 96, sample rate. And that changes based on what the session we have. And yeah.
So whenever the project comes in, if you're internally printing, you're having to internally print to the converter rate of whatever the project was in. So if it was 44.1, you'd have to capture that.
44.1. Yeah, this way everything gets captured at 96.
That's great.
Unless I have one client that likes 192. But.
So the faders, you have both automation and the old VCA school. Talk to me a little bit about why you still like the old mixing on the console automation with the VCA faders.
Well, this automation, the last software update was 95. It still runs on floppy disks. So it's ancient, it really is, but it's so much better than anything that's come out since, in my opinion. Because first, one of the things is that you can save mix passes as like a playlist. So you could have 30 mix passes in the computer, and then you can edit between them. And you can take individual tracks from individual set, take the lead vocal rides from verse 2 from mix 4 and put them into mix 12. That's just a normal thing to do on this. Okay, try to do that with Pro Tools, because if you're going to save it, they're going to be saved in different sessions, and to kind of put them together.
Why do you think they never did? When they were building DAWs, that no one decided to?
I asked them. I asked the guys at Avid, and they said, "Well, that would be an incredible amount of data to have to deal with."
Like 200 megabytes.
It's funny, SSL does it on a floppy disk. It's like, so what? What's the problem?
Right.
Of course, there's no plugins. You're only actually saving dynamic automation for the faders and a snapshot for everything else. So it really is a lot. Having said that, it's a lot less actual data.
I think it's like anyone that's not used to walking in front of a 70-something channel analog console, the first thing it does is intimidates people. And I remember when I first started at Chicago Recording Company, they had a 6000E in Studio 5. And it was very intimidating understanding the computer apparatus, because your mind, it's just, when you don't know something, you have to learn it. But once you learn it, it's extremely easy.
The other thing about this is that I found, as opposed to mixing, because a lot of people say, well, mixing should be a performance, So yeah, great, except that you usually can't get every fader by yourself, so you need somebody else. So whoever you're working with is bound to miss a cue or something like that. And I'll remember enough to get through into the first verse or the second verse, and then I'll miss something, and I'll have to keep stopping and go back and pick it up and
or that's why they used to mix down just verses and choruses and then splicing and
Yeah,
cut the tape,
right.
which
We
is
used to splice all
insanity
together.
to me.
And but the thing is, I can do a mix by myself, and I can actually listen to the song while I'm mixing. Whereas when you're doing a manual mix, you're thinking about what's the next move I got to move this pan pot, or I got to move this fader from here to there at the second verse or whatever it is, you know. And you got to remember all this stuff. It's just too much to deal with, right. And in one go. And that's why you always have to end up stopping. But the thing is, you could do on the computer, that's just a natural thing. You could stop and do little sections, or you can mix all the way through, straightforward. And you can actually listen to the song while you're mixing it. Whereas, you know, it isn't that, there's less sort of mechanical work that you have to do at one go. But let me see. So look at this, the space age graphics. I mean, this is graphics of the future. Let's face it. I mean, you know, at least if it was 1909, I mean, if it was, yeah. It was,
I mean, I still would rather look at this every day than some graphics of now. You can see, so the dynamic and gate section, the EQ, and then the auxes, and then the fader.
Yeah, but it's really simple. If you want to reset, well, like, whoops, I'm on the wrong channel. Here we go. There you can see on that red knob, which is a high frequency, that's that, because it one
is the black where it needs to be.
The black is where it needs to be.
And the white is where it's at now.
Where it's down. So, and once they merge, then it just turns black, and then you know that's exactly right.
And it's within a 20th of a dB or something like that.
Something like that. The little Genelecs are for stereo. And I like to have a different speaker. I used to use these Yamaha NS10Ms, so these are pretty good.
These Genelecs, which are also connected to the Atmos system, do you have these as stereo on a switcher? So you can hear them in stereo too?
Yeah, I can listen to the big, either pair in stereo. That's cool. Or these little Apple speakers over here.
Tell me about these little guys.
Well, I used to use those. What happened years ago, after the 94 earthquake, I was supposed to work with Chrissie Hynde on one of her records. And she was at the Chateau Marmont, and the TV fell on the floor. And she, 4 o'clock in the morning, she was out in the parking lot, and she calls me. She goes, "Wow, what's happening? How's your house?" And I said, "Well, we're actually okay. Can I come over?" And so she came over and lived at our house for a couple of weeks while we mixed. She said, "Can we mix?" And I said, "Well, we'll see if the power comes back on." And it did. It came back on at 9 o'clock. And she said, "Do you have any kind of little reference speaker to listen to? Something, like a home, something that somebody might have at home?" And I said, "Well, I just got these little Apple speakers at the computer store. Because I bought a computer and they said, 'What do you want?' I said, 'Well, give me those speakers.' And as a little bonus. And we both thought, "Oh, they're really fun to listen to, and they sound really good, and it's a good little reference." So then I used them for years, and I went through like 8 pairs of them, I think. They just kind of fry after them.
They don't make them anymore, so don't look.
Not since the 90s. And
it's great because it's also your editing station now.
But I contributed those too. Somebody knew that I was looking for, so I knew that I had used them in the past, and
they're vintage.
People wonder, well, why do you use this ancient technology? Well, the thing is that this automation is so much better than anything that's current, or anything that even the SSL came up with afterwards, which is surprising because they had it. I mean, they had the best system because it does things. It's got this trim mode, so you can say you've ridden your vocal quite extensively to make sure it's in the right place. But then you go back and you listen in trim mode because it's VCA, the fader's not moving. So you get to the second verse and you go, okay, well all my rides are great, but I just want maybe a little bit more in places. And so, you find a new level for it. You go through, you find a new level for it, so it's trimmed up a little bit. And then you rewind. Now, on a typical moving fader system, or in Pro Tools or just about anything else, if you rewind, the fader goes back to wherever it was, and so you've lost that that change you've just made. And with this system, you go back and you hit this little fader button and it jumps to the new trim level. So you're not even going into absolute, so you're not writing a new basic level, you're writing a new trim level, or you can go into—
So it's a separate.
Yeah, it can go into absolute if you wanted to, but that's and I use that function pretty much constantly when I'm mixing. I'm always going through, okay, well, let me just go back. All right, from this second chorus, now I want it a little louder, a little softer, or something like that, you know, and plus the fact that you can edit between saved mixes.
That's huge.
And which is huge. You can save as many mix passes as you want, you know, and
This was your original G at your old house was the last GE series before they updated to
The J.
the J.
it was one of the last ones. I mean, I think there were a few others.
But within a year, they pulled out the J, which was a very different sounding sonic analog character.
Yeah, it's pretty, it still sounds good, but it doesn't sound as good as this, I don't think, in my opinion, of course.
Sticking to it, and we'll leave it at that. Bob, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ira, thank you so much. And everyone out there, have a great time mixing.